The brand new Google Pixel 9 Pro and the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra are easily two of the best Android phones you can buy in 2024, but they really couldn't be more different. They have wildly different designs, cameras, and software features. Now, the S24 Ultra has been a popular choice among tech reviewers, myself included, as their primary phone basically since launch. I use this phone every single day from January until just a couple weeks ago. And now the Google Pixel 9 Pro and the Pro XL kind of aim to dethrone the S24 Ultra as the best Android phone of the year. So this is going to be a full head-to-head comparison with sample photos and everything that I think you need to know to figure out which one is actually the better phone. So starting off with the Pixel features, I'm going to kind of go through a lot of Pixel features that are exclusive to Pixel that we don't see on the S24 Ultra, and then we'll do the same for the S24 Ultra before getting into the camera test, the design differences, and the internal differences as well. But the features, I think, are so critical for these and really change a lot about your experience with them. The first one with the Pixel, which most people kind of overlook this, but using it on a daily basis, this makes a huge difference. And this is the entire call suite that Google gives us, including call screening, meaning if somebody calls you, you can just tap a little thing and Google answers the phone for you and figures out who it is. It's great if you're in a meeting or if you're getting a lot of spam calls, it can kind of filter that out. And I know there is like a Bixby call version for Samsung, but it didn't ever quite work as well as Google's call screening. We also have call notes now. So if you're on the phone with like your mechanic, they're telling you stuff about your car, you can record all of that and then later go back and search those notes and figure out, all right, what was that part that they actually said I needed? And then Google it and figure out, is that actually the right price for that part? Different things like that could be very useful if you don't have a pen and paper nearby. Now, with that being said, the S24 Ultra does have an S Pen, so you always have a pen and paper nearby. Anyway, back to the Pixel features. Hold for Me is another really great one. Direct My Call makes it so much easier if you're like on the phone with the IRS and there's like a million different press 1, press 5, whatever. So much faster when you have that. Also, on the back of the phone, you can quick tap for Snapchat. So you don't have to map any buttons or have shortcuts on your screen, just quick tap to open Snapchat a little bit quicker if something crazy is happening and you want to send it to your friend. It also comes with Gemini Advanced for free for 1 year. After that, you will be having to pay for that, but it also does have Gemini Nano loaded on here, which is just a general multimodal AI that can kind of interpret photos and text and different things, and really is quite useful on the phone, and I'm sure is going to continue to get even more useful. We also have Now Playing, which is a feature that not everyone even has turned on, but if there's a song stuck in your head that you heard when you were in Home Depot 2 hours ago and you don't know what the song is, you can just look on here, it'll tell you all the songs that you heard in the past couple hours. I find this especially useful if I go to a baseball game, for example, and I don't know, it's just a cool feature you can enable here. There's also some newer features like the new Pixel Weather app, which, it's a weather app, right? But it's pretty nice, pretty streamlined, and for Android, when there's a lot of noisy, ad-filled weather apps out there, it's kind of a breath of fresh air. And the Screenshots app as well, which takes all of your screenshots and using Gemini Nano, like I said, can analyze them. And if you just have a question about a screenshot you took from a receipt, from like a booking confirmation, or maybe it is something about like an order you made earlier. Maybe if you take screenshots of your favorite memes and you want to find one of them, you can just go into the Screenshots app and search, and it interprets every single screenshot you took and can return the relevant ones back to you. Within the camera, we'll talk a lot about the camera, of course, but just specific features they added, Add Me is a really cool one. So in a group photo, typically, side note, typically I'm very against like the very AI generated photos. I know all phones are really touching up the color a lot, but I've never been a big fan of like Magic Eraser. It's a cool feature, but it's such a fake photo then. Same thing with like the Imagine thing that Google has now where it can change the backgrounds. It's fun and all, but it's not something that I've ever really liked. But Add Me is one that I think is kind of a reasonable exception to make, where essentially you take the same photo twice. Like I will take a photo of my whole family standing there, but I'm obviously not in the photo. Then I give it to my brother or whatever, and then he can take that photo with me standing there, just me, and it kind of guides him on where I should be based on where everyone else was, and then it kind of stitches the photos together, and it's just one big photo that is similar to as if you ask somebody to take the photo of everyone. It's not perfect, but it is really impressive. Next one is actually really significant. I know there's a big list here of Pixel-specific features, but I promise Samsung has a lot as well. But this is one that I, in particular, really liked about the iPhones for the past, I think probably 3 years now, and that is the SOS feature, Satellite SOS. So if you are backpacking, if you're camping, you're hiking, way off-grid, like no phone service, which I do a couple times a year. It gives me so much more peace of mind knowing that there is satellite SOS on your phone. So if anything ever does happen, you can call for help using that feature there. So finally, an Android phone has it. The Pixel phone here does have that. I wish Samsung did. I'm sure they will next year. I know Qualcomm was working on that a couple years ago, so it's very likely to come to the S25 in the couple months. Otherwise, I mean, you get a thermometer on here. It's kind of a gimmick. I don't really use that much. And just a nice, clean UI with the Pixel. You can do some heavy lifting things, like a lot of cool features in there, but generally like a clean, easy UI. Anyone who switches from iPhone most likely would enjoy the Pixel experience more so than the Galaxy experience, which tends to have more features and a lot more going on, and it can be overwhelming for somebody who hasn't previously used a Samsung phone. But with that, you are getting a lot of features. So kind of shifting gears here, the next segment of this video, the Samsung-specific features. Now, there may not be as many that I list here, but the ones that I do name are really big, really significant ones. The first one is Samsung DeX. I made an entire video just about Samsung DeX because it is such a cool feature that most other phones just don't offer, where you basically have a full, basically a Chromebook. Like you have a full computer interface, full desktop interface within your phone as soon as you plug it in to HDMI. It could be a TV, a projector, a monitor. You can connect a mouse and a keyboard, and you could potentially even replace your laptop. That's what I did in that video. Additionally, we have an S Pen, like the coolest feature that Samsung has that besides Motorola, like really nobody else has this. And after using this phone for 6 months, or actually almost 8 months there, it was like I used that basically at least once a week, several times a week probably, I would say. I used that to write down my to-do list, to take notes on a call, to do different things like that, to kind of sign documents, draw like whatever diagrams I'm trying to explain to somebody. I think that is incredibly useful. We also have a great one for traveling, which is multi-device Bluetooth audio. So if I'm watching a movie on a plane with my phone, I can connect any two Bluetooth earbuds, even if they're like AirPods and Galaxy Buds, AirPods and Pixel Buds. It doesn't matter. You can connect them both to this phone and play simultaneous Bluetooth audio so you can both watch the same media at the same time. That's pretty fantastic. You can also have stacked widgets on your home screen, and this is a subtle one, but you can close all of your apps without having to swipe up, go all the way over to the end, and then say close all. Like close all's right on the bottom, as I think it should be. We have Samsung Secure Folder on here, as well as a ton of other Samsung features, but Secure Folder is one that there's kind of like hidden folders and some similar-ish things on the Pixel, but Secure Folders, in my opinion, is just better. Like Samsung does this right. Additionally, for anyone who's really trying to go deep into the weeds on full routines and customization and automation with their phone, Bixby Routines really does a lot on your phone. As far as camera features go, like I said, we're going to talk a lot more about that in the camera segment of this video, but there literally is an entire extra camera here. The 3x zoom camera, as you'll see in the photos, does kind of bridge the gap very nicely between the primary rear lens and that 5x lens. So zooming is going to be a little bit more seamless and a little bit less of a gap there in my opinion. And then lastly, of course, we really can't forget, Samsung has an entire expansive ecosystem that is generally larger than the Pixel one. Like the Pixel ecosystem or Google ecosystem, most of that is not even really that exclusive to Pixel devices. Like if you get Google Home stuff, you get a Nest thermostat, you can use that perfectly fine on your Galaxy phone. But there are plenty of Samsung devices that only work with Samsung phones. You've got Galaxy tags, you have special features on the watches, and there are more watches to choose from for Galaxy watches compared to Pixel watches. You have more Galaxy Buds, and with the Buds, you get more features with Samsung phones. You have more powerful tablet options, in my opinion, compared to the Pixel tablet. Even though I love the Pixel tablet, the Galaxy tabs just do offer more. They're more premium and more expensive, of course. And you have a lot of really cool laptop features as well that are tied into that Samsung ecosystem. Like Samsung really does build out a lot of different products that kind of lean to being a little bit better for the S24 Ultra. Both of them, of course, have a lot of the core Android features of circle to search and different things like that. And depending on when you're watching this video, some features may roll out to other Android devices, and this list may not be as exclusive to either device as it is when I'm filming this. But getting into the next comparison here being the cameras. This is probably the biggest one people are going to be interested in. There are some pretty fundamental differences between these. I'm not going to get into the megapixel counts of each lens because ultimately I don't think that matters as much. So let's actually get into just a photo test and I'll show you some of the differences between them. So I want to start off by saying these are both fantastic cameras, and if you know what you're doing, you can definitely capture some pretty incredible photos with either one of these phones. It's really going to be just a matter of preference for which style you actually like better. For example, looking at this flight shot right here, they both did a really good job with dynamic range. The Galaxy tends to be a little bit more saturated and a little bit warmer, while the Pixel is a little bit more contrasty and a little bit more stark. Like you'll see details like, for example, the windows in here versus the softer look of the Galaxy here. Looking at the standard lens again, pretty common. We're seeing the same trend here. The ultra-wide lens on both of them, similar field of view. The front-facing camera, actually the Pixel 9 Pro does a little bit of a better job with skin tones in my opinion. My skin looks a little bit less red. Again, here, this is a great example of the yellow bottle being way more vibrant on the S24 compared to the Pixel 9 Pro. Looking here at some plants, again, the S24, no surprise, a little bit more vibrant, but nonetheless, these are still really sharp, really great photos with similar bokeh, like a really nice natural blur behind both of them. They both do have the same ability to zoom into 5x. If you zoom into 30x, I thought this was really interesting. I expected the Galaxy to be a lot better, but they're actually quite similar, even though the Galaxy is technically able to zoom in significantly more. Like the Pixel maxes out at 30x, whereas the S24 could go into a 100x. And another key difference with the videos is that Samsung, and they've been doing this for quite a few years, takes legitimate 8K videos. Like they're actually recording an 8K video. It's not really a great 8K video in my opinion. I would much rather film 4K, and I've never found a use for 8K on here. Just, it looks noisy and it doesn't really look very nice in my opinion. But Google kind of offers 8K video, but it's not a real 8K video. It is an AI upscale of a 4K video, which honestly, I don't really know why you'd want to do that. Like, you're kind of just taking up more space, and I think 4K videos on any device that I've ever used looks good enough. Google does have Video Boost. I don't really use it that often. It's kind of, I guess, nice in low light, but generally, like, I don't really find the need to use it all that often. Google does, however, have Magic Eraser for audio. Again, a feature that feels very artificial, and I'm not the biggest fan of that, but it's cool and powerful if there's something very distracting going on in a video you recorded, maybe like, you know, your kid's soccer game and somebody's like yelling profanity next to you, like maybe you could kind of filter that out. Maybe that'd be useful, but other than that, I don't know, I don't really use that much. Samsung is able to zoom way further despite both having a 5x optical lens. Like, for example, I was at a Zach Bryan concert, like way up, way up. So, you know, you can't really get good pictures up there with most phones, but the S24 Ultra, I zoomed all the way in and actually had like a pretty impressive photo considering just how far away I actually was. Getting into the next segment of this video, the designs of these phones are clearly quite different. You've probably noticed that throughout the video, obviously, but the benefit of the Pixel 9 Pro is that it comes in two sizes. The 9 Pro, which is a smaller one, which I think is a huge win in my book, having basically no compromises other than like a proportionally smaller battery, and the Pixel 9 Pro XL, which is essentially the same size as the S24 Ultra. They both have a 6.8-inch display. But looking at those displays, the S24 Ultra, again, it's going to be really a personal preference here. It's more boxy in the corners, which has the advantage of making the media that you're watching less cropped in the corners, so I think that makes it a little bit more immersive. Also, it kind of has nice flat sides. If you're gaming, maybe that would make a difference. I don't do a ton of gaming, but I could see that being like a pretty nice difference to have larger, flatter sides on the top and bottom. And on the sides of the phone, then, speaking of that, they are a little bit more rounded. So this is a skinnier, taller, slightly heavier, but more rounded edges on this phone. And that makes it feel a little bit more like one-hand friendly, in my opinion, whereas the Pixel is a little bit wider. It feels a lot more like the iPhone 15 Pro Max, a little bit wider, a little bit shorter, lighter, which is nice, but you know, with those boxier sides, just slightly less ergonomic in the hand, although sometimes the flat sides can make it easier to grip if you're really grabbing just on the rails on the outside. The Pixel does have more RAM, but don't be fooled by the spec sheets here. You don't really use all the RAM in the same way, so it's 16 gigs versus 12, but they are compartmentalizing that RAM for AI features, which is great because, you know, like Gemini Nano and a lot of other AI features on here will be using that. I think that's pretty fantastic. Both displays, I can't really compare them too much. They're both extremely bright, But the S24 Ultra does have a nice benefit here of having better glass, so more scratch-resistant display here, and that really cool anti-reflective display, so way less of a glare on this phone compared to the Pixel. However, after using it for a while, I know Parker Burton he had the same thing that I had, and it's like there's some film on here that I guess wears off or something like that, but you end up getting way more like fingerprints and smudges on here after a while compared to most other phones I've used, and no matter how much I clean it, it always seems to get pretty smudgy pretty quickly. Now you could just get a screen protector, but you kind of lose that nice anti-glare aspect of it. So I think you could just reapply an oleophobic coating on here and that should fix it. I never bought a kit, I never did it. I think Parker did, so check it out. I think he has some content on TikTok about that. But otherwise, like I said, rounder sides on the S24 Ultra compared to the boxier ones on the Pixel. The camera bumps on the back, that's just really a personal preference on aesthetic. Personally, I think they both look really nice. I know it's going to be heated. Some people will love one or the other. Although I will say, when you turn them sideways, I believe the camera bumps are shallower on the S24 Ultra, which should, I don't know, it's kind of nice that it is a little bit slimmer, a little bit less to get caught on. Although I find that on the Pixel, I find like I use my finger kind of like I kind of put my finger there to hold the phone, kind of gives me a nice little pop socket type feel there. And because it is a kind of long visor across the whole phone, you have no wobble. Wobble doesn't really matter without an S Pen, but with an S Pen on here, like I think Samsung is the one that should probably have the cameras across. It would make more sense to me to do it like that. Inside the phones, we have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 for Samsung on the Samsung phone, obviously, and the Tensor 4 on the Pixel. Tensor is going to be much more geared towards AI. That's Google's main thing. Even though AI runs very well on the Snapdragon as well, the Snapdragon, like it seems to have, at least this phone has better thermal management, but also just it feels like a faster, snappier phone when you're doing more heavy lifting, whether that's video editing, just opening a lot of apps at once, multitasking, running Samsung Dex, a lot of different things that you'll be doing on the phone. The Snapdragon, in my opinion, is a little bit more capable. So for speed, I think Samsung does pull ahead a bit right there. Oh, and of course, how could we forget the Samsung S24 Ultra has a titanium build, titanium frame on here, whereas the Pixel is using recycled aluminum, which is significantly softer metal, and it's going to be much more likely to get kind of dinged up and scratched and things like that. So titanium, I think, is a pretty big win, definitely more premium, and you are paying a little bit more for the S24 Ultra. We'll talk about that in a second. But the Pixel does have faster wireless charging, 23 versus 15 watts, but it has slower wired charging, 37 versus 45 watts. I don't know, for me, that doesn't really make a big difference. They both have wireless charging, and that's how I charge them. So some final notes on these phones. The S24 Ultra starts at 256 gigabytes, and it's gonna run you $1,300. I'll have links down below to all the phones, of course, if you wanna see the latest prices, and there are affiliate links, so if you wanna help out the channel at absolutely no cost to you, you can go down, use those links when you order your phone, and that would help me to buy more cool tech that I can make videos about. The Pixel 9 Pro XL then, with 256 gigs of storage, so really spec matched, same size, same storage, it's gonna cost you $1,200, so $100 less than the S24 Ultra. But the real kicker here is that you can get the smaller model with less storage with zero other compromises. The same exact cameras, the same features, the same everything else, and it's going to be $999. So $300 less expensive. And the only downside there, like I said, is you could downgrade if you wanted to 128 gigs of storage. You save $100 for that. And I mean, otherwise, that's it. Like, you're getting the same everything for, you know, either of the Pixel 9 Pro phones. I think that's a big win there. But let me know which of these phones you think is better. I think it really comes down to personal preference. I loved using the S24 Ultra, but the Pixel 9 Pro has some pretty awesome features on there.